Hello and welcome to my thoughts on Bleach TYBW Season 3, or Core 3. I know that's the official term for it, but I'm just gonna call it Season 3. I think we'll survive. For the past 2 seasons of Bleach TYBW, I've been doing thoughts per episode, so every week I would record my thoughts on each and every single episode as it came out, but I decided not to do that this time around, just because it felt like sometimes I was putting out 4 or 5 minute videos without too much to say, and I have a certain level of disillusionment with the overall plot of the Thousand Year Blood War, and within the first few episodes of Season 3, that really hit home for me, and I was like, I don't want to trample on everyone's fun, because it seemed like some people were enjoying it a bit more than me, so I thought, I'll leave it till the end, and I'll just give my thoughts all at once, all in one place, and yet now I sit here looking back at the season and being like, I kind of wish I had done a video for every episode all the same. I love Bleach from the bottom of my heart, but I do have a love-hate relationship with Thousand Year Blood War. I've spent, I guess, a decade trying to put my finger on what it is that really bugs me about this storyline. I think Iwak is the main problem, and his power, the almighty, and the way they handle precognition and omniscience and overcoming that. I'm still not a huge fan of that, and we saw some of that working in this season. We'll see the bulk of it next season for sure. That being said, this season was rife with incredible story moments and extended scenes, and for the most part I was just lapping it up. I do want to go through this season kind of chronologically and just give my brief impressions on the various fights and plot beats and stuff like that. So we are going to have to start with another criticism, and that's just the entirety of Ishida in this story arc, with him being like, no, I'm the only one who can kill the Soul King, therefore I'm not going to impart any of this information to my friends. I'm going to push them away and do my darndest to make it look like I'm the villain, so that everyone who is already extremely suspicious of me will not be extremely suspicious of me, despite the fact that I am fighting literal omniscient precognition. Ishida, you are not smarter than literal omniscient precognition. But yeah, I remember reading the manga and just being like, I'm not convinced that Ishida's turned... we've had too much past with Ishida for him to suddenly turn traitor, and no one in the story is convinced that Ishida has turned traitor, and therefore it just feels tiresome. And they did some work this season with an included fight that wasn't in the manga, or at least I don't think it was this fleshed out in the manga, between Ishida and Ichigo, which was bloody fantastically animated, by the way. An absolute joy to watch. But he shoots Ichigo full of holes, or I guess full of one great big hole, and sends him plummeting, and Orihime has to save his life and stuff because he's gonna die. That's new, if I remember right, and that is like, whoa, Ishida really is committed to this cause. And of course there's also Ishida versus Renji, which I believe was another included scene, an included fight that wasn't in the manga at all, that was really fun. You hear Ishida versus Renji and you don't think it's going to be the craziest fight in the world, but Ishida's got these new powers, Renji's got this new Bankai, and it was really fun to see how that turned out. And they were really trying to say to the audience, like, hey, look, Ishida is going down this path. He's sacrificing his friends to, protect whatever, the greater good, to kill Iwak and stuff. But even then, it's still resolved the same way, with the same conversation, and all I can think of now is he's even more unforgivable for what he did than he was in the manga. But we're just okay with it, because of he was trying to kill Iwak, and that excuses everything, I guess. Not the best friend turned traitor plotline I've ever seen in a story. Let's leave it at that. Although we did get 2 fantastic extra fight scenes out of it. I mean, didn't he also kill the Squad Zero member? Didn't he straight up kill her? That might have happened in the manga, but still. If you can't tell, my memory of exactly what happened in the manga is blurry, so bear with me on that front. Anyway, some of the things I thought were really cool, instead of just lingering on some of that stuff. Ukitaki's sacrifice, releasing Mimihagi to save everyone, the backstory was fun to see animated. It was, of course, a delight to see Aizen again and hear his voice specifically in this version. Of course, he doesn't really do much in this season. They kind of just put him in a chair, put him in the middle of Soul Society and go, stay there until we need you, and then leave. And we do get a reminder of him in the final episode just sitting there being like, What on earth are they doing? Looking forward to seeing some more from that man next season. Honestly, maybe this is recency bias, but the standout scenes for me this season mostly come from the second half of the season. All of Mayuri versus Pernida and everything that happens with Nemu, just as it is in the manga, of course. But all of that stuff was fantastic. My favourite touch is how Zayalaporo... I've never tried to say that name out loud. Zayalaporo? Anyway, it's one of my favourite moments, how it's revealed that Mayuri's kind of internal monologue, he kind of remains there as that, and it's so cool to be like, oh, this kind of monster scientist bereft of ethics and humanity and all that stuff, he does have, the whole point of Nemu is that he does have some element of humanity to him, no matter how far he's tried to bury it. And it's so fun to watch him go through that like kind of grief when Nemu dies, and for that to be manifested as like an internal monologue of Sayalaporo. I swear I'm not saying that correctly, of him mocking him and taunting him for having emotions and being like, shouldn't you be glad? Your invention wasn't perfect. Now you get to make a new version. This is great for science. Another favourite moment for me this season was Shunsui, and like everything about him and his sword and Nanau's sword and his opponent. I just loved everything that happened there to kind of to eloquate that perfectly, I guess. I really liked that bit. That bit was good. Now, to shine some light on the Quincy's for a minute, I grumble about them having magic powers without limits and all that stuff. Is Lil Barrow, is that his name, the sniper? It is cool seeing him go from like, oh, he's a Quincy who's a sniper, and his power is he's really good with a sniper, to then just being like, oh, but his Volstandig is this crazy thing, and then he just gets into like this crazier and crazier, like, biblically accurate angel kind of form almost. He just becomes more and more warped, and we're reminded that these are some of the most powerful beings in existence, and you can't be one of the most powerful beings in existence without being a little funky. But yeah, Shansui's Bankai was peak. I loved how he manifested what's her name? Pirate Lady. I know the sword's called Katen Kyokotsu, but the sword lady is called... quick, to the wiki. I guess she is just called Katen? I thought she had a different name for some reason. Anyway, I can't put my finger on what it is, but I love the relationship he has with that lady, and then also whatever's going on with Nanao and how she feels about him, and how, like, the whole thing about how she hasn't really been in a battle, and, like, how they take the time to be like... well, good luck, this is your first battle, you have your sword now, and she gets cut and she's like, oh my god, I didn't realise how getting cut by a blade would hurt, and like all this stuff. It's not all about the battles though. One of my favourite moments from this season was just when the Fullbringers show up, when Yukio summons his box, and we've got Ichigo, Chadorihime, Yurichi, and then we've got Nell, we've got Grimjow, we've got Yukio, and we've got Ririka. I think that's all of them. They're all in a room together, and I don't know why, but I just loved that. I would watch an entire anime just about this team as like a slice of life kind of a thing. I will say another one of my gripes with Bleach TYBW is how they brought Grimjow back just to make him an example of how powerful Naklavar is, and if I recall, we don't really see him do anything else after that. He just kind of disappears again. It was such like a waste of a returning character. I do hope they do something with him, because, I know he's like overdosed or whatever Naklavar did to him, but if Renji can be fully healed from having a hole shot through his chest within a couple of episodes, Grimjow can come back in season 4 for a newly introduced fight. Why not? Who's he gonna fight? I don't know, how about Nell? I don't remember her doing anything either. Just have them have a friendly sparring match that's really well animated or something, not connected to the story at all. Bleach has too many characters, doesn't it? Now, I would say there are 3 big standout moments from this season for me. It would be Mayuri versus Pernida. It would be everything going on with Shunsui versus Lil. And it would also be Basby versus Hashwolf, but mostly like the flashback episode. The flashback episode was really well done. I don't remember if their backstory was quite as fleshed out as it was in the anime here. I think it probably was, but I didn't really care about Basby until that episode, and it was really cool to kind of like see where they came from. understand a little bit more about each of their characters. The flashback itself felt like a kind of mix between Attack on Titan and like JoJo, just in terms of vibes. It was really weird. But it's always cool to get a bit more backstory about these Quincy's, because a lot of them do feel like they show up out of nowhere, are extremely powerful for no apparent reason, and then die in some my sword perfectly counters you kind of a scenario. But yeah, Basby versus Hashwolf was so well animated, because Hashwolf was obviously so much better than Basby in the fight. He was so outmatched, and just like the body language portrayed by Hashwolf killing his friend and having to pretend like, he wanted to, kind of a thing. He was doing it to serve his majesty, like the way he walks up the steps afterwards, but also just like the amount of bloodletting, how brutal it was with like dismembering him and stuff. So good. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I've got to say about this season. I know I haven't talked about every single tiny little aspect of it, but those are all the things that stand out in my mind, all the things I really want to get my reactions out there to, but there is still so much more to come. I remember I reread the manga a few years ago, a few years before it got announced, I think, that it was getting animated. And it was around this time in the manga where I was, like, discovering things which are absolutely crazy which happened that I'd somehow forgot. I've kind of half forgotten them all again, but I kind of do have an inkling of what's to come, and there's some really cool stuff. But I think the most exciting thing is, I was reading up on what other people were saying about this, because I was like, am I remembering this right? And people seem to agree. There's not really enough content for an entire 13 episode season. So what are they gonna make? Like, how many extra scenes are they gonna do? How much fleshing out of backstory are they gonna do for certain characters? Or like, are they gonna adapt the special one shot that Kubo did for the anniversary, which we really want to be the beginning of the next arc, even though he's said since that it was just like a what if kind of a thing. Personally, I'm of the opinion that Bleach doesn't end with TYBW. I don't know if they're gonna, remaster old Bleach, or if they're gonna push forward with a new Hell arc or whatever, but I think it's too popular at the minute to just throw it away and be like, okay, we're done, this is all we wanted to do. I would say, like, Boruto exists, right? Like, Dragon Ball Kai, or whatever it's called, exists. There are going to be, at the very least, executives being like, well, we can't just throw this franchise away. It's making money. We need more story, damn it. Hopefully Kubo agrees, because otherwise that could come out as kind of soulless and not great. But I think there'll be more after season 4. Maybe don't hold your breath for it, because you could be disappointed, but I think season 4 itself is going to be very fun. So anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought down below if you like. If you want my specific thoughts on any particular plot point, leave a comment and I'll get back to you. But in the meantime, I don't know if I'm going to go back to thoughts per episode next season. I might do, just because it's the final season and stuff. We'll see how I feel at the time. But it is surprisingly taxing to, like, make one of these every single week as the episodes come out. But yeah, we'll see. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in whatever I make next.